So getting into the code, I'm just going to copy it over. Whatever I had last time with the airplane, I'm just going to copy it over, and I'm going to start at that point. And so I'm going to start by thinking through some things with the player object, right? So thinking about where they start. I have to move their starting location. How do they move? Okay, they can only move left and right, not up and down. And then sort of as a random thought, it would be nice if, since a person's going back and forth, if I could turn that person to face the direction that they were going or traveling. So I'm going to change the image there. So first off, here's the code. It's exact copy. I just copied it over into a new file. It's got all the skateboard or the other graphics. And yeah, so I am going to look at where the player starts. And I know that I set the player's location right here when I set the top of the rectangle of the player object to 250. Remember, the rectangle object controls where the player, where it moves, where it's positioned on the screen. It also controls the collisions. Okay, so the rectangle top, I'm setting the top equal to 250 pixels down, because of what I wanted was that airplane to kind of start like in the middle on the left side. Now I want at the bottom of the screen, or close to it, maybe a few pixels up, and probably somewhere in the middle, just as a random. So when I do this, I am going to now, I don't want to set the top, I want to set the bottom of the rectangle. And remember, we created these two nice constants here for screen width and screen height. So I can always use those whenever I need to. And the bottom is going to be screen height. And I'm going to subtract, because subtracting moves us up. I'm going to subtract 50 pixels just to start with. I'll be able to adjust that later. I also want to make sure that the skateboarder is in the middle of the screen, okay, when he starts. So I'm going to, it doesn't have to be the exact middle, although I could get the exact middle if I wanted to. All I need is a little bit off center is good enough. So I'm going to put the left-hand side of the rectangle at the center of the screen, which is screen width, and then I floor divide by 2 to get the number of pixels to the halfway point. So the only reason it'll be off half point is, let's say if the midpoint of the screen was here, it's going to be the left-hand side of the object. If I needed them exact middle, I could get that, but there's no reason to be that precise. Okay, so I'm going to see if this works by just testing it out. But what I'm going to do before I test it out is I am going to turn off this section of code from 132 to 136, which is what adds the enemies to the screen. I don't want anything else. I don't want any missiles flying at me right now. I just want to see what I did here. So I'm going to comment that out, and now it won't create any missiles. Okay, so there's my airplane. Of course, I can still move it all 4 directions, so we need to figure that out too. We need to lock it in so it just goes back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to go back down to that player object. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image to skater left, because I have a left and a right version for later. So I'm going to change it to the skateboarder. And I'm also going to remove the ability to move up and down, which is easy, because in this code, all I have to do is comment those out. And now it only recognizes left and right. So if I run that again, there's my skateboarder. He's still got that box around him because I didn't change the color key here. So if I change that to cyan, which is 0, 255, 255, and then I load that again, now that color is gone. So I'm starting to get a different game here a little bit. So we took care of these, where do they start? We took care of how do they move. Can we switch the image for left versus right movement? Of course we can. So what we want is, we know that this is how we change the surface of that image or that player. I'm just going to copy that and come right down here. Now, mind you, there is more programmatically efficient ways to do this. This will be take up a little bit of resources, but we don't care about that. We're just getting started here. If we want to get deeper into that kind of stuff, you can always do that as far as program efficiency and code efficiency goes. But for this, we're just going to reload everything here. Normally, you wouldn't reload this image every time they switch directions, but it's only one sprite. It's only happening when the player presses it. Like, there's a lot of reasons why I don't care too much about this. And anybody who does, I'm sure will get over it very quickly. So when they're going left, we want it to load that left image. When we're going right, we want it to load the right facing image. Okay. And now, if we look, my little skateboarder, he can't do any tricks. It's kind of a sad skating situation. Okay, so we've taken care of the player object for now. Where do they start? How do they move back and forth? And then, can we switch the image? Yes, of course we can. Okay, so